9 bodies buried in a backyard. Social security checks cashed long after deaths. One elderly woman at the center of it all. The case of Dorothea Puente shattered the image of the harmless grandmother and revealed a predator hiding in plain sight. This story is inspired by the real life and events of Dorothea Puente. To her neighbors and tenants, she appeared to be a kind, caring landlady. With her white hair, glasses, and grandmotherly demeanor, Puente seemed like the last person anyone would suspect of foul play. But appearances can be deceiving. The discovery of 9 bodies buried in her backyard exposed a horrifying truth. How did this seemingly harmless grandmother become one of America's most notorious serial killers? As we uncover Puente's dark past, we'll see the warning signs that went unnoticed for years. Her story serves as a chilling reminder that danger can lurk in the most unexpected places. Behind Dorothea Puente's grandmotherly facade lay a history of trauma that shaped her into a predator. How did a troubled girl transform into a cold-blooded killer? The answer lies in her painful past. Dorothea Puente's childhood was marred by tragedy and instability. Born into a family plagued by alcoholism, she witnessed her father's threats of suicide before losing him to tuberculosis at the tender age of 8. Just 2 years later, Puente's mother died in a motorcycle accident, leaving her and her siblings orphaned. The children were placed in an orphanage where Puente endured sexual abuse. This betrayal of trust by adult caregivers had a profound impact on her developing psyche. As Puente entered adulthood, her personal relationships were characterized by turmoil and instability. Her first marriage at 16 ended in divorce, during which she made the difficult decision to give up her 2 daughters for adoption. Puente's second marriage to Axel Johansson was equally tumultuous. In 1961, following a period of erratic behavior and excessive drinking, she was institutionalized. Her third marriage to Roberto Puente lasted only 16 months and was marked by domestic abuse. This pattern of failed relationships and trauma likely contributed to Puente's distorted view of trust and human connections. Following these personal setbacks, Puente began to craft a new persona. She presented herself as a caring matron and devout Christian, using this facade to gain the trust of vulnerable individuals. This ability to manipulate perceptions would become crucial in her later criminal activities. A psychologist who evaluated Puente during this period issued a stark warning. She was dangerous and in need of mental health treatment. Puente's troubled past created a perfect storm for her future crimes. The repeated betrayals, losses, and abuses she experienced may have eroded her capacity for empathy and warped her understanding of human relationships. Instead of seeking help to process her trauma, she developed manipulative strategies to protect herself and exploit others. Unresolved trauma often leads to self-destructive behavior, but Puente's path took a sinister turn. Dorothea Puente's journey from a troubled past to a life of crime began with small steps that gradually escalated into more serious offenses. Her criminal career started in 1948 with an arrest for forgery. This seemingly minor offense involved purchasing women's accessories using forged checks. As Puente's criminal activities progressed, she became more brazen. In 1960, she was convicted for operating a brothel disguised as a bookkeeping firm. This clever deception demonstrated her growing ability to manipulate appearances and exploit vulnerabilities in the system. Her 90-day jail sentence for this offense provided her with an opportunity to refine her manipulative skills further. During her time in prison, mental health professionals diagnosed Puente as a pathological liar with an unstable personality. Rather than seeking help or working to address these issues, Puente used her time behind bars to hone her deceptive abilities. She observed and learned from other inmates, developing strategies to manipulate people and situations to her advantage. Upon her release from prison, Puente made a decision that would set the stage for her most notorious crimes. Despite being explicitly forbidden from running such establishments due to her criminal record, she opened an unlicensed boarding house. The boarding house became the perfect cover for Puente's escalating criminal activities. She began by stealing from her tenants, forging their social security checks to line her own pockets. This pattern of financial exploitation would continue and intensify over time, eventually leading to far more serious crimes. In 1982, Puente's criminal behavior reached a new level when she was convicted of grand theft and administering a controlled substance. This conviction resulted in a 5-year prison sentence, during which she continued to refine her manipulative tactics. While systems failed to stop Puente's escalating behavior, her boarding house guests faced an even deadlier threat. The unassuming Victorian home on F Street in Sacramento became the backdrop for a series of chilling crimes that would shock the nation. Dorothea Puente cultivated an image of a caring matron, dressing in vintage clothing, oversized glasses, and adopting a nurturing demeanor. Her tenants, often elderly, disabled, or struggling with mental illness, saw her as a beacon of hope in their troubled lives. Little did they know that behind her grandmotherly facade lurked a predator waiting to strike. Puente's modus operandi was as cunning as it was cruel. She used her knowledge of pharmaceuticals to drug her victims with substances like codeine and flurazepam. These potent sedatives, administered in lethal doses, led to the deaths of multiple tenants. The victims, already vulnerable due to their circumstances, had no defense against Puente's calculated attacks. Once her tenants succumbed to the drugs, Puente faced the grim task of disposing of the bodies. In a macabre twist, she chose to bury them in her own backyard. This audacious decision allowed her to keep her crimes hidden while maintaining the illusion of a normal boarding house. Meanwhile, she continued to cash her victims' Social Security checks, exploiting the system's belief that these individuals were still alive. The case of Ruth Monroe exemplifies the insidious nature of Puente's crimes. Shortly after moving into Puente's home, Monroe was found dead due to a massive overdose of codeine. Initially ruled an undetermined overdose, Monroe's death was later reclassified as a homicide. Another victim, Everson Gilmouth, met an equally tragic fate. His body was found in a box dumped near the Sacramento River 3 years after his death. Puente's ability to maintain her facade while committing these heinous acts was remarkable. Neighbors and casual visitors saw nothing amiss at the boarding house. However, those who spent more time around Puente often sensed that something was off. Many victims and their families had suspicions, but tragically, they did not act on these feelings until it was too late. Detectives later described Puente's boarding house as a place where guests had a habit of checking in, but never checking out. This chilling observation encapsulates the sinister reality that existed behind the innocuous exterior of the F Street home. Puente's case serves as a stark reminder of the importance of trusting one's instincts. The red flags were there: tenants disappearing without explanation, Puente's overly controlling behavior, and the odd odors emanating from her property. Yet societal expectations about elderly women and the vulnerability of her tenants allowed Puente to continue her crimes undetected for years. Despite years of successful deception, Puente's luck was about to run out. What unexpected turn of events would finally bring her crimes to light? As investigators arrived at her doorstep, they were unaware they were stepping into a macabre crime scene hidden in plain sight. The unraveling of Dorothea Puente's deadly scheme began with a simple missing person report. Alvaro Montoya, a tenant at Puente's boarding house, had disappeared without a trace. His social worker, concerned for his well-being, reported him missing, setting in motion a chain of events that would expose Puente's horrifying secrets. On November 11, 1988, police officers arrived at Puente's property to investigate Montoya's disappearance. What started as a routine inquiry quickly took a sinister turn. As they searched the premises, authorities made a chilling discovery: the body of 78-year-old Leona Carpenter buried in Puente's backyard. This grim finding was just the beginning. As investigators continued their search, they unearthed more bodies, each one a testament to Puente's ruthless nature. The quiet Victorian house on F Street, once seen as a haven for society's most vulnerable, was revealed to be a gruesome graveyard. Sensing the walls closing in, Puente made a desperate attempt to evade capture. She fled her property, leaving behind a scene of horror that would shock even the most seasoned investigators. Her escape, however, was short-lived. Thanks to media coverage of the case, Puente was recognized in Los Angeles by a man who had seen her story on the news. His tip led to her arrest, bringing an end to her years of deadly deception. The trial that followed in February 1993 laid bare the full extent of Puente's crimes. She faced 9 counts of murder, each representing a life she had callously ended for financial gain. The prosecution presented evidence that most victims had been drugged before their deaths, painting a picture of a calculated killer who preyed on the weak and vulnerable. Puente's defense team attempted to argue that her victims had died from natural causes or suicide. However, the mountain of evidence against her was overwhelming. The jury, after careful deliberation, convicted Puente of 3 murders: Benjamin Fink, Leona Carpenter, and Dorothy Miller. While they were deadlocked on 6 counts, these convictions were enough to ensure Puente would never walk free again. On December 10, 1993, Dorothea Puente was sentenced to life imprisonment without the possibility of parole. The grandmotherly figure who had fooled so many was finally exposed for what she truly was: a cold-blooded killer who had exploited society's most vulnerable members for her own gain. While justice was served, the impact of Puente's crimes reverberated far beyond the courtroom. What unsettling truths about human nature did her case reveal? The answers would force society to confront its own biases and assumptions about safety. Dorothea Puente's case left an indelible mark on society's perception of danger and personal safety. Despite overwhelming evidence against her, Puente maintained her innocence until her death by natural causes in 2011. This steadfast denial, in the face of 9 bodies buried in her backyard, added an extra layer of complexity to an already disturbing case. The image of Puente, an elderly woman with white hair and glasses, challenged deeply ingrained stereotypes about who could be capable of violent crimes. The kindly grandmother figure, once seen as the epitome of nurturing and safety, was now associated with one of the most chilling serial killer cases in American history. Media coverage of Puente's crimes was extensive, capturing the public's imagination and fueling a fascination with true crime that continues to this day. Numerous television shows, documentaries, and articles have explored her story, each grappling with the same unsettling question: how could someone who appeared so harmless commit such heinous acts? This widespread coverage served a dual purpose. While it satisfied the public's morbid curiosity, it also raised important awareness about personal safety. Puente's case became a cautionary tale, emphasizing the importance of vigilance and skepticism, even towards seemingly benign individuals. The phrase shadow people emerged to describe Puente's victims: elderly, disabled, and marginalized individuals who often slipped through society's cracks. Her case brought to light how easily vulnerable populations could be exploited, prompting discussions about social responsibility and the need for better protection of at-risk individuals. Puente's story has become a significant part of true crime culture, further promoting the idea that danger can lurk in unexpected places. This narrative has influenced personal safety awareness, encouraging people to look beyond appearances and trust their instincts when something feels amiss. The legacy of the Death House landlady extends beyond her specific crimes. It serves as a stark reminder that predators can hide behind any facade, challenging our assumptions about safety and forcing us to reevaluate how we assess potential threats. Her ability to maintain a facade of respectability while committing heinous acts underscores the need to look beyond appearances when assessing potential threats. Even seemingly harmless situations can harbor hidden dangers. Remain vigilant and prioritize your personal safety at all times. In an unpredictable world, staying alert and trusting your intuition can make all the difference in keeping yourself and others safe.